The old home pitch looks the same as I step out and start to train. And there to meet me is my manager and chairman. Down the wing I look and there runs Mary. Boots of gold and kit so fair, oh it's good to play on the green, green grassroots of home.
Hello, this is the Green Grassroots of Football podcast. Welcome to the first, possibly last episode. I'm Andy Glover, who along with Mark Grinter will be the regular host of what we hope will be a regular or irregular, or intermittent, one-off podcast about grassroots football, focusing mainly on the youth aspects of girls and boys football. Each episode, Mark and I will take a look at a current topic of conversation and add our tuppence worth, whilst generally just chewing the fat over all things grassroots football. We may also be joined by guest presenters, guaranteed to be as unknown as the two of us, and we may also even expand our regular panel. A bit about us. We both manage teams at 5 Club Juniors. I'm currently nearing the end of my third boys team, having started managing in 1994. Next year my boys will be in their final youth year as under 16s, and I will also be managing our under 8 girls, who have been training this year in preparation, and this will be my first time managing a girls team. I am also the club welfare officer, and in the past have been chairman for a spell. Enough of my voice, I'll let Mark introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Mark. I joined with Fries with my two boys with Andy's third team. So that was when they joined under 7s. Within 6-7 months, Andy asked if we'd help, and I was helping coach with the boys, and still doing that now. Like Andy said, the last season will be next year. 4 years ago, my daughter Imi decided she'd like to play football, so we went to the Wildcats session, which is down at Fries, and now I run her team, which is the under 9 girls, and I'm also head of girls football at Fries Football Club, which I thoroughly enjoy, and it's a totally different experience to the boys. So my journey is a lot shorter than Andy's, so I've said for 8 years, but yeah, getting into it.
Right. Now a word from our sponsors. Yep, that was it. We have no sponsors at the moment, so if anybody wants to sponsor us, you'll get a little jingle or a little advert there, and we'd really appreciate it. And you can get in contact with us via the website that this is on. So, this first podcast, we're going to be discussing unacceptable behaviour at grassroots football. And if I can just read this from the FA. So, ahead of the new grassroots football season 2022-23, the FA has issued a statement calling to stamp out unacceptable behaviour in grassroots football. And this is what it was. Football has a unique power to deliver amazing benefits to individuals and communities. Not only does it keep us physically and mentally healthy, but it also builds long-lasting friendships, teaches leadership and resilience, and inspires the nation. However, for all that good that football can bring, sadly last season, at all levels of the game, there were too many examples of unacceptable behaviours that had the opposite impact. At grassroots level, these included swearing, aggressive shouting, and persistent arguing among spectators, players, and officials. It is only a small minority of people that act in this way, but these individuals can spoil the game for everyone, causing children and young people to not want to play, referees and volunteers to drop out, and spectators to stop supporting their team. As the Football Association, we are not going to stand by and allow this to happen. We will take action against those that spoil the game for others. For this coming season, we will promote our respect message to encourage the right behaviours, consider harsher sanctions for those behaving inappropriately. If necessary, we will continue to look at how we strengthen penalties and suspension periods so that we can effectively tackle behaviours that have no place in the game, trial different initiatives to help encourage the right behaviours, including piloting 2 silent sidelines weekends. As a parent carer of a youth player, you have a big responsibility in setting the right standard of behaviour in grassroots football. We recognise the key role you play in maintaining a positive atmosphere before, during and after the game. Please play your part and let's make this season a brilliant one for all. Football deserves better. Enough is enough. So that was from the FA at the start of this season. So I suppose the first question that I think we have to ask ourselves is, was that needed?
It's, as I said, it's the minority which is becoming more and more relevant. In incidences are increasing and they are getting worse. At the young age of the girls and the boys from 7s to 12s, it's from the parents. I think we saw in one of our games, under 8s, under 9s, when a parent came onto a pitch and confronted under 9 player, and that could easily escalate, because then I think one of our parents came on to, and it's frightening for the children playing, obviously the refs. So it is, something needs to be done, and maybe harsher sanctions to people who do get involved. How that's managed, I don't know. But yeah, I do think it is. So something needs to change, otherwise somebody will get hurt.
So how do you then sort between teams who have an argument amongst themselves and get seen by an official, and those people who are week in, week out causing referees to quit, players to quit through their aggressive behaviour and not being seen, not being caught?
I think it's down to the individual clubs. We're aware, on our sidelines, if people behaviour you do know on a regular basis, and if clubs allow that to happen, it's difficult for the leagues to monitor it because they're not there a lot of the time. So if we had a parent in, say, Fry's, at the moment under 15 boys who was constantly given abuse, I think eventually you have to say they're not allowed to come, or that child unfortunately isn't allowed to play if that carries on. I think it's too much pressure to put on the refs who are there, so sometimes these are young individuals themselves. So the actual individual clubs are the ones that do need to start being a bit firmer. They've got to be. Unfortunately, I think you'll sometimes find with the ones who are more aggressive are necessarily potentially the better players as well, or the parents of the better players, and then you'll find the competitiveness. We'll let this go this time. We'll let it go
because the manager wants to win the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's that line, and I think people have to. I mean, I'm probably have been more guilty. I think I'm quite calm and relaxed person. On a sidelines, I've known to be sometimes close to the line, and you're embarrassed by your behaviour. So it's learning that behaviour. The children will learn from that behaviour. Something does need to be done. Whether sanctions need to be tougher, bans need to be tougher. Because I do think somebody will get. Well, we've seen it in the Bristol leagues already this year, where they stopped all games for the under-16s the year above, where there was a nasty incident and somebody got really hurt, and that is totally unacceptable.
No, Steve, there was one incident there where they basically used an iron fist to root out what basically you could have done with a scalpel, because it was one incident and yet they smashed the entire age group. And there was teams in there who might not have had one issue their entire age career, from under 7s right to under 16s. There could have been many, many teams who had never once caused an issue, and yet that weekend they were banned.
So, yeah, it is difficult, but I think how does the league deal with it? I mean, you could just punish, say, the individual team that was involved or the individual person that's involved, but then it will happen, and to a certain degree, I think even we've known within Fry's certain age groups, there have been fights on the pitches this year and stuff like that, and I think they have to get a message across that it is unacceptable. I mean, I think was it Liverpool as well, they cancelled all their games.
Yeah, the whole FA in Liverpool cancelled all their games. Yes.
And it's as a warning. It's frustrating for teams, and it's unfortunate. It's the minority ruining it for the majority. I said I would imagine in grassroots football, certainly in the Bristol area, 95 to 99% of people behave themselves. Parents behave themselves. Most of the children behave themselves. But the incidences are creeping up bit by bit. And it's difficult, and it can be intimidating for people. As I said, the kids will follow parents' guides and coaches' guides. So as it gets older, it is the kids that get involved.
So I go back to my previous team, my very first team actually, and there was a team. I think we were under 10s at the time, and everyone had played them. They started playing, and after 4 games, it was a situation where it was like this team are gone, and the league just threw them out. The league just threw them.
Yeah.
It was like they were just gone. They were causing so much trouble that the league decided to get rid of them.
Well, I think that's good, and I think people can't be scared to report incidents. I think a lot of the incidents happen on the day. For whatever reasons, managers, opposition refs and opposition managers don't report it in. I think you do have to report it in. I think I know somebody who's, again, I think he's managing an under-10s boys team, and they've got a team they played earlier in the season, and the opposition coaches was swearing at the people I work with. The parents were swearing amongst each other, and it was awful. They've got them in a cup competition, and he's and well, we probably won't play them. And I said, have you reported it to the league? He goes, well, no, because it's our word against theirs. But as I tried to get to him, well, if you do it, and if another team that plays them does it as well, eventually the league will know about it. It's extremely hard. People can't be afraid to report things. It's the only way things.
We as a club have done this before, and we've actually requested league officials be there, and they have done that. League officials have come along, they've watched the game, and they have warned the opposition they'll be there, but at least it has made, one, the league aware the opposition are like that, and two, it has allowed the game at least to be a normalised match for everyone playing. But it shouldn't have to happen. No. And like I said, the team that we had as under 10s, this is, like I said, going back a long time, they were thrown out. That was it. They were just gone. All their results were expunged, and they were gone. And perhaps that's the way.
I think it has to be. I think it has to be tougher. But again, it comes from, certainly for the children, what they see on the telly on the weekend, how people behave.
Well, this was the thing I was going to raise. Is it Premier League role models?
Yeah, I think I'm personally a big Liverpool fan, but I've seen Klopp shout and all sorts at referees and get in their faces. Well, if you see that, if you're a Liverpool fan or whoever doing that, and certainly the players, when they go around the refs, they will copy it.
But it's not just the manager. You pan around the stadium, and
all
all the fans are shouting at any player who goes across to take a throw in. The fans are shouting at them. You have the manager shouting at the referee, the fourth official. You have the players surrounding the referee. I remember Middlesbrough played Manchester United, and Juninho, there's a name from the past, was, I think he was fouled, or he was fouled for a penalty, and it was either going to be the equaliser or the winner for Middlesbrough in the dying minutes, and the referee ran backwards for about 30 seconds with 4 Manchester United players chasing him around the pitch. Now, my thoughts at the time is, why is he not going yellow card, yellow card, yellow card, yellow card, just stopping his tracks, go yellow cards all round, and it's done. But they don't. I mean, they don't stop it. I mean, that's just one example. But they just surround them, and that's been ever since. That's been before then. It's ever since now. And even Arsenal Man City played. It was last night, and the commentary then was, "I don't like seeing the." I can't remember if it was the Arsenal or Man City, but whichever one it was, surrounding the ref every decision.
I think a lot of them do it on most. They said it's in most games, and I think, and I've refed a few games this year, and I can guarantee that every decision you make is questioned by everybody, even if it's as clear as day. They question it, and my lad refed over the weekend, and the opposition managers come off, and he said at the end he was the best ref that they've had all season. Spoke to the Fries manager after. There was a few questionable decisions there, and it was so they were all pleasant enough with him. I think hopefully because he was known within the club, but it's argumentative, and football is a game of opinions, and it's checking that in motion. And if they can't do it in the Premier League, can't do it in the Championship, people will copy. Like you said, when you go to a game, all you get, a lot of the time, is the ref gets abuse. So whether they come to the sidelines, and it's solid, refs getting abuse.
I mean, I'm going to divulge slightly here, but my advice there, from experience, I've been refereeing for 20 years, and because I've done it so long, I would be like, any abuse I hear, it's yellow card straight away.
What would you do with the spectators? Is that down to the ref or the club? So obviously, as a ref, because we've just done the course, and they said if anything's on the sidelines, as a ref, you don't have that control. You can't give that, the control. If a spectator's given stuff, you can go and speak to
the manager,
and they've got to go and deal with it.
Yeah, see the manager and get them to deal with it.
So are managers strong enough to deal with that?
Oh, the home manager, yeah.
But in some cases.
But in terms of, I'm talking in terms of abuse from players or from managers, certainly. I would be booking them, and because another example, and I got so many little nuggets of examples, and I apologise now. I can remember again my first team, under 14s, us and Stapleton are going for the league. It's only us and them. It's early on in the season, but at that point, it's game 7 or 8, and it was already clear we were the two teams, and we're 4-1 up with about 20 minutes to go, and their manager is just going nuts on the line. He's criticising everything, but what he's criticising is his own players. He is just browbeating them for everything they do, and I'm to be honest, I felt sorry for the boys, but we're loving the way it's going, and the referee was strong enough to walk over and said, "I've had enough of you," and he showed him the card and sent him off. And he was sent away from the pitch into the car park. He had to stand and watch it from about 50 metres away, where he could no longer influence the game. And in the final 15 minutes, we went from 4-1 up to 4-3 up, and we clung on to the game. Because without him there giving them such grief, they actually played like the team they were. So it actually benefited the children not to have that grief and abuse thrown out. So it's a perfect example of why you need, and actually that kind of leads us on to Silent Weekend.
Silent Weekends. Now, I said you've got with that, obviously with that example.
Now, Silent Weekend. Now, you and I, we both got our very strong opinions on Silent Weekend. Now, in fairness, the new one. Now, first of all, for those who don't know Silent Weekend is an initiative by the FA where everyone shuts up, and all you're allowed to do is, for anything good or bad, is clap. It's quite literally that. The managers, they give direction at the start of the match to the players, and they crack on. And the next time you talk to your players is half time and at the end of the game. And everyone else watching has to stand there, and anything good or bad, they clap. And that's it. That's Silent Weekend in a nutshell. Now, we've done this twice. The first one was an unmitigated disaster.
Shocking.
But we were a lot younger then. Our players needed a lot of verbal direction, and without them getting it, they just weren't able to cope. I think I missed the second one, which was it this season?
The second one was this season.
This season, and I did miss that.
And again,
we drew, didn't we?
We drew, and so it was just the coaches, but we weren't allowed to say anything. But I would say, even at this age, they just need a bit of help now and again.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, the first silent weekend, our boys were they under 10s?
Yeah.
Now they're under 15s, and they were better, but they still struggled. But they're doing a second silent weekend, but the difference is this time they are allowing the coaches to give direction.
Yeah.
Which I think will be better.
I think it's a lot better.
That allows, when good or bad things, the spectators clap, and the managers and coaches are given direction. Which if you go to an academy and watch, is exactly how it happens. The parents have to stand there, be quiet, and the coaches give direction.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I think that would be absolutely fine. I have
no
issue with that whatsoever.
I think it'll be better.
It's just whether the parents can keep quiet.
It's whether they. And it takes away the thing with grassroots football. One of the main things I think is being part of a team, success, failure. So I get this week. Is it this weekend? I think it's this on the 25th, 26th of February. There will be a young boy, a young girl, will score their first ever goal. They've tried for X amount of times, and all it'll be a nice little
round of applause.
And that will take away something for that child. I get. So, in that sense, I still struggle with it a bit. I think it should just be a positive. As far as just positive, how again you manage it is difficult. So if somebody does score goals, so that they can all celebrate. There's moments you can see on YouTube when a child has scored their first goal, and they go running over to mum, and mum or dad is going absolutely nuts. Well, that will all be taken away that weekend. Yes, it'd be fantastic that the refs don't get abused. It'd be something fantastic, like in the example you gave, because again, I've seen coaches, and potentially I can be guilty myself at sometimes, of just constantly telling them what to do and not giving the child time to work it out. And obviously with parents, we've got a parent on one of the teams that I manage. We're trying to make them to pass and move or pass, and you can hear him shouting to his child, "Do something else."
Yeah. I mean, we all know a parent who's done that. Don't we know that?
so that in that sense, it'll be good. And I said the main thing is that the refs won't get any abuse, and that is good. I mean, unfortunately, which is fine, but you can still guarantee those weekends in the older age groups, probably from under 13s, under 12s upwards, the refs will still get it from the players.
Well, not just that, there'll be many teams who don't do it.
Oh, there'll be, yeah.
Because I can remember when we did it the first time, I know it wasn't mandated, but they were saying, please can everyone do this? And we could clearly hear on other pitches just shouting and even the one this year, I know of at least one manager in our club who said, well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And the team we played for the under-15s when you went there, the way they got around it was silent weekend apart from the players. So their coach, because he had subs, was just passing instructions to the subs, and they were shouting to what to do. And we was, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? But that was, so people again will find ways around it. And so I think the league's got, the FA has got to do something, because it is totally unacceptable. And again, and people do take it too seriously. Punishments need to be, again, I don't know how you monitor it, but punishments do need to be hard. I think clubs need to come down on, grassroots clubs need to come down.
Now you say referees will be protected.
A little bit more, yeah.
That brings us on, I think, a good one to referees. Now, we're part of the Avon Youth League. Now, in the morning, it tends to be okay because many years ago they moved everyone but from under 14 and below to morning football to allow the 15 and 16-year-olds to be able to referee in the morning, which is what your boys are doing, which is really good. And a number of our players do that, and it earns them some money, and they play in the afternoon. But where it suffers is the under 15s and under 16s. Now, this year, there are, I think it's 8 divisions across the under 15 and under 16 age groups. I think it's something like 84 teams, so 42 matches every weekend. And at the start of the season, there were 12 referees allocated, and those 12 are not always available, which means generally there's at least 30 matches every single week, or at least 30 matches every single week just in the Avon Youth League without a qualified referee, which requires, a home ref basically to do it. What can be done about that? I mean, because we know what. Let's go in. We'll give a bit of context. We knew that the weekend for training referees was coming up, and so we said, well, we have a game, but we've got 5 players who are doing this course, so please can we move that game? And the league refused to do it. Their view was, we've got enough referees who do the younger games, we want referees who do older games, so we're not going to let you move the game. And our response was, but they'll grow up to be referees who do the older matches, and they still said no, which brings me to wonder how seriously they actually want referees, because they have to consider that some of these younger boys will go on and referee eventually, should go on and referee at an older age group.
It's narrow thinking. They just it's up again. The leagues, they are trying.
But how do you encourage older? One of the ways to encourage older referees is finances. Because if we're getting a referee, I mean, if there's 12 referees for 42 games, then on average, most teams are paying out for a referee 1 in 4 games. Yeah. Well, if referees for the Avon Youth League are £35, if you're paying out every single week, then that's £140 a month. Yeah. Well, if you're getting one a month, imagine if you paid them. I'm not advocating paying them £140 a month, but if you were saying paying 50 quid or 60 quid, but at least getting a ref every other week, because there was more of them. If you paid more, yes, you'd be more chance of getting a referee.
But again, I think a lot of it is because the abuse that they do get, and this is where potentially the silent needs to come in, or something needs to change with people's attitudes. I think because it is horrible. I mean, I've said you've reffed games. I've reffed a couple of the boys under 15s.
Well, it's interesting that you say I've reffed games. I truly do not hear what's being shouted at me. I've had the players moaning at me that other players are saying things, and I'm not even hearing it. So there's no way I hear what's being shouted at the sideline. But I honestly think I hear these stories, and I read the stories on the various social media channels about referees quitting because of abuse, and a lot of it has come after the match they were abused, and after the match the referee, the manager said this to them. So it does seem to be a lot of it is after a match, whereas me, we tend to referee our home games where the opposition aren't going to walk up to us and abuse us. No, because we're the home managers as well, so we're kind of in a bit of a safe position, aren't we?
I said, and it's never too bad. And I think, unfortunately, I suppose the thing for you, because you've done it a lot longer, is it worse now than it was with your first team in what you've seen?
It's harder to say, because back when I had my first team, we always had refs. Okay. There were that many referees that under 15s, under 16s, and then we had under 14s in the afternoon as well. We had referees.
So for whatever reason they are dwindling, are refs put out because it's now in the public eye? When there is an incident with a ref, it's all over social media, it's all over the news things, on websites, on BBC. And like I said, I think there was something even this week that
it discourages them from becoming ref. Well, do you know what? There is a. Do you know what? I we completely get away from football here. There is a study that shows that children are more safe than they have ever been in like sort of history, as it were, in terms of being abducted or those sort of things, and yet they are roaming less and less from their home. Their circle of roaming from their houses are closer and closer than it's ever been as well.
Yeah.
And when I talk to people about this, they say, no, that's not true. It's more dangerous. It's more dangerous. And I believe, I may be wrong, I believe a lot of that is because you have 24-hour rolling news and social media that when something does happen, it's everywhere. It's all over the news. And so, that exact thing, that when something happens to a referee, it's everywhere. You all see it, and it's like, oh my god, that must be happening on every pitch.
Yeah.
When actually, it's not happening on every pitch. Right. I'm not saying there's no problems. There is a problem, but I think because we have to have this constant news cycle, and because social media, everyone shares it, you see it, and it's like a feedback loop where you see it, you share it, someone else sees it, and they think, oh, that must be true, and then they share it back to you, and they share it back, and it goes on, and so you think it becomes more exponentially shared, and everyone thinks it's a massive problem.
And it might not be,
and it might not be as bad. It may be no worse than it was 20 years ago.
No, and I think generally what you've heard moaning and the odd bit of swearing and stuff. But what it said, was that the same as it was 20 years ago? Probably was. But it's just the highlighted incidences get more prevalence, and I agree. I think certainly with the 24-hour news, it's they've got to fill it up with something. So if something happens that they can say, a referee was attacked, well, that's X amount. But again, I think certain parents and stuff will say, well, hang on a minute, I don't want my son or daughter reffing because look what happened to that lad or girl in Manchester, in London, in. But that could be
some referees are attacked, and when a ref is attacked, it's all over the news, isn't it? Yeah, and the FA are forced to do something in response, and so this is because of that the attack, and then it's suddenly it's a big thing. Now, one of the things they have brought in response to referee and abuse is respect barriers.
Yeah.
Do you think they work? I mean, they certainly keep people back from the sidelines in terms of allowing the linesman to see the line.
What I've seen, I said again with the girls' football. Yeah, it has.
It keeps them back, but does it make them more respectful? It keeps them 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards back from the pitch. It allows the linesman to run the line better. But a lot of teams you go and you say, right, parents are that side, and there's always one or two parents who think it doesn't actually
and then you'll always get
count
them
them.
Stand behind the goals.
And they stand behind the goals, exactly, because, my boy's the goalie, so I need to give him some
advice.
Oh,
and that can be quite intimidating. Certainly for the youngsters, it can be intimidating.
But in terms of actual respect...
No. Well, again...
Has it stopped them giving abuse, shouting at them?
No. I mean, I think 95% are respectful. You will always, but you must have had it all through time. Unfortunately, you get idiots.
Yes.
I mean, again, this season, I was reffing under-9 girls game. And this one bloke was just shouting, anything he didn't like, whatever. And eventually, the ball was kicked and it hit this girl in the face, one of the opposition in the face. So I blew up, stopped the game, and he was going, what have you done that for? Israel, why have we stopped the game? And I said to him, look, this girl has been hit on it. I just want to make sure she's okay. The first thing is safeguarding this girl. And it ended up being his daughter. So, and I was like, well, and he went off then. I think he was embarrassed that I was more concerned about his daughter's welfare than he was. But you will always get idiots, and I think there's a lack that they don't know the rule, and that's the safeguarding thing.
Yeah, they don't know the laws of the game, do they?
No. And so they will then just get into a heated thing, and they take it far too. Yeah, you can take it far too seriously. It's a combination of copying, but I don't know if it's worse. As I said, from when even the boys 8 years ago when I started with my twin boys, how I see it with the girls' football now is virtually the same. Now, whether it's more calmer because it's girls' football, I don't know. Certainly with the players and stuff at the moment, it seems a lot more relaxed, but they are only under 9s. But all the way through the girls, it seems a lot more friendlier. I think potentially, it has to be more reported is the only way.
That's what I was going to come to next, actually. Yeah, in terms of certainly the players and the coaches or the managerial team, the referee certainly has that ability to go yellow card, red card.
Yeah.
But I know certainly lots of them don't want the paperwork.
No.
So it's like, yeah, red card, and they'll do it to shut them up, and it just keeps the game quieter. Somebody's giving them grief, off you go, and then and what will happen is the manager will go up to the referee and go, "Oh, you're not putting that red card, are you? In really, he's a good lad, really, or she's a good girl. You won't put it in." And oh no, because we even had it at a tournament, didn't we? And one of our players actually called a referee a paedophile.
Yes.
And yet all he had to do was go and apologise.
Yeah.
And he didn't report him.
No.
And I mean, I'm one who believes that all red cards should be reported, all red cards should be sent in. I mean, to give you an example, I did 1 year when my second team actually, we've gone to the afternoon playing, and for 1 year I was like, I'll do some refereeing in the Hannah Minor League, which is that's the one we're even Youth League, but Hannah Minor League is the younger ones, and I refereed essentially the under 10s, and in that year I sent 3 players off. These are 9-year-olds. Yep. And it was all for the same one word. It begins with F. I'll let you fill in the blanks. But there was one game that always stands out in my mind. The game's flowing along, and the manager shouts at this one player. And he turns to the manager, "What am I supposed to effing do?" And I blew the whistle, stopped the game, called the lad over, said, you know what you did. What's your name? You know what you shouted, don't you? Showed him the red card. He jumped up and down, stamping his feet, started crying and ran off. I felt a little bit guilty, but not fully, because I'm sorry. I'm not having foul and abusive language from a 9-year-old on a pitch. And then the manager's like, "Oh, come on, ref. What's that for? It wasn't that bad." And I was like, "You're serious, aren't you?" Yeah. And then after the game, I go over, and it's only the boy stood with the manager saying, "Dad."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You serious?" Because if my son swore at me like that as a 9-year-old, I wouldn't give the referee time to send him off. It'd be like, "You off, you're in big trouble." So,
I mean,
but
I suppose obviously that's the coach's son and stuff. But as a coach and a man, how?
But the referees have to report them for a start.
Yeah.
I sent all 3 of those in. Guaranteed. And we had a player yellow carded only a few weeks ago. We've already. I know that referee. He's a very, very good referee. We've already had the fine through.
Yeah.
So we know that. And we had a county cup game earlier in the season, and we had a red card.
Yeah.
The ref didn't see the incident which started it, which is unfortunate. No. But he saw the reaction from our player, red carded him, which is absolutely fine because he gave him what he saw. But we had the fine through, and he had a ban. And that's what it should be, because if you're going to give a card, and I was always told this on my refereeing course, if you're going to give the card, then you have to follow through, because otherwise players will not learn, whether they are under 7s or under 18s, under 21s, whatever. And that way, at least, you will stamp down on bad behaviour. And it has to also apply to the managerial coaching team. You have to, now obviously the spectators, it's a lot harder because you have to tell them they have to control it. But I think I'd have to double check this, so please, listeners, do not quote me on this. There was some form of control where I may be wrong here, that you could argue for abandonment if they were failing to control their...
I'm sure there is.
And then the club are actually in trouble for failing to control these supporters. you can call for that. You can actually say, "I'm abandoning this match because of," and then
mean,
the club are in control, are in big trouble
was-
with the county. So I mean, and so there's that level. But whether a 14-year-old boy in his third or fourth game would have the strength to do that he wouldn't.
I couldn't imagine my boys have said they've just started their reffing journey. They would just suck it and see. And this is where clubs, managers and coaches, especially if you've got a youth ref, you've got to be stronger with them. I mean, my own personal feeling is if we had a parent of a younger team or a player of an older team was abusive to a ref, or certainly threatening or behaviour or violent behaviour, you'd give... my own personal feeling is I think is one striking you out. Certainly if you've gone and been violent for no reason or anything like that. And clubs have to be stronger. They say, look, certainly with violence, one strike you out. If you're, abusive, if you're using all sorts of language at a person, it's pretty much, you might potentially give them one warning. Second time, you're out of a club. And I think then what the leagues, FA should do, there should be a list you can go in. Tom Smith has been abusive and stuff, so he's been banned from this club.
Yes.
And then that league will then say, well, Tom Smith then cannot play for any team or anything for that grassroots football. Same as they do with banning orders in Premier Leagues and football. You misbehave at that club, you get a banning order.
Yeah.
Well, if somebody's abusive and stuff in the Avon Youth League, the Bristol Girls League, whatever league it is, well, you get a banning order. Now, it could be for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And as long as every club then stuck to it, eventually, hopefully, enough people would get banned. It might be strict. I think it would take a long time. It's certainly not a 24-hour fix. But that, I think, is potentially the only way you will start stamping things out. Or one of the ways, hopefully. But
you say about parents, of course, one of the big problems we have is a lot of the parents are living their careers through their children.
yes,
And that's why they give a lot of the abuse and bad behaviour, is because when their children aren't doing it, sometimes it's actually aimed at the children, sometimes it's at the coaches. I mean, do you get abuse as a coach from your own parents or from the opposition parent? I mean, I've had it. I've had it in jest from my own parent. I've had it in truth from my own parents when players have left, but not during a game.
I've never had anything during a game. You get the odd thing on an evening, moaning about, but yeah, just general moaning.
Which has a volunteer who does this, gives it their time freely. And puts hours and hours in. You must love getting like I do.
I mean, I've had a couple of Sunday nights where it's been 3 or 4 hours, and we might have even won the game as well. And you think, this is just it's. But nobody's been abusive. I've never had a parent be abusive yet. I said I'm very early on so I'm sure it's going to come, because you can't please them all the time. And you're right, they do live their lives or through their
careers,
children, and they sometimes think that their child is better, and it's the balance.
We have many of those,
and it is the balance of getting things right. I mean, obviously the FA rules, each child should play so much minutes. A lot of teams don't do that fairly and don't do that equally, and so it's different attitudes but hopefully then the parent will find the right club for their child. I think at Fry's generally we're not win at all costs. It is to be equal and stuff. There are some clubs who are win at all costs, and eventually I think the parents find the club that's right for them.
It's interesting you say that, because you find that those clubs tend to be the ones who are linked to adults clubs who are sort of what used to be the Western League, but that sort of Tool Station standard. That's where the adult teams are, whereas we're not that sort of level. So is it that? Is it because at a grassroots level where the children's teams are part of clubs who've got adults in a pushing for not professional, but trying to get to semi-professional level, and so the pressure is on. Because I know we're not going to name other clubs. We know certain clubs. I mean, our one club I know, they had I think it was an under 14 year, and this is not our age group. We're going back to a previous team, and we played their A team. And then we heard that their B team had folded, and I asked what happened to their B team. I knew they had enough players, and the manager said that the club had decided they weren't going to be good enough to give any players to their first team ultimately, because they were nowhere near the standard, and so they weren't going to make any money for the club. So there's just a drain on their resources. So all the boys were told find other clubs. So 15, 16 boys were suddenly told, your team are no longer part of this club because you're not going to be good enough for our first team anyway. Because you're under 14s now, we can see you're not going to be good enough. You're a drain on our resources, so goodbye.
That's shocking.
And that was their response.
And it is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
Whereas
shocking.
we as a club would find an under 15 team, say, who are saying we need a club. We're like, yeah, come play under our name.
Don't turn away anybody. Anybody's welcome to come. Anybody's welcome to train.
And that's the difference, I think, between a real community club and a club who say they're a community club, but whose actual business model is to get their adult first team, as high as they possibly can. And I think that's where a lot of the unacceptable behaviour is possibly driven by, because the pressure is on to get players into that first team.
And I suppose when you are going on the same sort of thing, a lot of the unacceptable behaviour is, like you said with that coach earlier, who was, when the team was 4-3, is parents putting on unacceptable behaviour on their own children, where they put them under so much pressure, so much, and again, a lot of the language I've heard, or aggressive nature in their tone, is at their own child. Where they are living, and it's unrealistic things. I think again, I'm not 100% sure, but I think out of every child doing grassroots football, the chances of any of them making it into the professional game is something like 0.02%. It's something ridiculous. It's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. And grassroots football should be about learning to work in a team, striving, winning, losing, drawing. You know, a team. If you win every week, you're teaching stuff. You've got to win, lose, and draw. In life, in jobs, when you get older, you are going to get a manager who you make a decision, or there's something happens which you don't agree with, and you've got to suck it and see, otherwise you'll be fired and stuff. And this is what the football at this level, at grassroots and youth, should all be about. And I think a lot of people get so engrossed in it that takes it away from it. I mean, I've been guilty of it myself. Certainly when you get to a cup quarter-final or a cup semi-final, you get, hang on a minute. But when you then take a step back, and I think potentially people have got to take a step back, there's got to be more education on it, rather than we're going to do a silent weekend and stop it. You've got to educate people. Maybe clubs should have, or the FA come into clubs and say, this is what, it's all
like
about.
education weekends, and call the parents in and we'll have an education weekend and that sort of thing,
and show really, the benefit, like I said, the benefits. I think for football and the community, I said one of my children is autistic. Football is a godsend for him. If it wasn't for football, I don't know where he'd be. And to be part of that community and be part of a club is so important. And it does bring out so much good in everything, and football does. And it's a bit of education for the minority. And sometimes you just need somebody, they're not bad people, just to go and have a quiet word. And they'll probably be embarrassed for themselves.
Yeah. A lot of people are reasonable once they walk away and you start chatting to them, they're quite reasonable. It's just that heat of the moment, wanting to win.
And then, I mean, there's a manager that we play. I would say when we're playing, he's an idiot. Once you go and have a drink or something with him afterwards, or you meet him in the shop, he's the nicest bloke you could possibly meet. On the touchline can be a numpty, to be polite, but and So, but he would never, I don't believe, would cross the line. So there is there is banter. You've got to take a certain amount. Ref and so, they're acceptable. There's lines, and I generally think probably the line gets crossed less than people realise.
Yeah.
I think the majority of the time, and you think, that's close to it, but it doesn't go across that much. It's just education. I think education is key for a lot of people on it. And for the majority of grassroots games, I would say this Saturday and Sunday, the games that are played, 95-97% of games will go off without no incidents.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of kids will play football this weekend. They'll even be part of a team, win, lose or draw. Unfortunately, if there will be half a dozen to 10 incidences probably throughout the whole country, and you'll hear about them.
Yeah. And because of it, something will have to be done.
Yeah.
And it'll be 5 silent weekends next year.
Yeah.
And everyone must do this new course. And
it's, you have got to step back and be a bit realistic with it. Because it is, unfortunately, like I said, 12, 14 referees for 40 odd games. It's bit by bit, it is destroying the game. And unfortunately, what you'll find as they get older and compared to the ones who have been competitive and where you are getting more incidents, certainly for under 15, under 16 games, potential for more incidents is, it'll be your home ref.
Yeah.
I haven't, unfortunately, I'm now getting into the habit. Not being a home ref, you're almost the away ref, so you think you've got to even a decision out.
Yes. I have been guilty of that as well, looking to go, I shouldn't give that because I'll look like a home ref if I do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Which you shouldn't do. You should just be completely unbiased.
And that's why there should be the ref. So I think what they need to do is, again, on social media, on the reporting, is have a more should be a more balanced approach. That they should say 95 out of 98 games, 96 went without any trouble.
Okay, so we'll wrap up here. It's been a pretty good discussion. Over the coming episodes, what we're looking to get into and discuss, coming up with some of the ideas, common challenges for grassroots coaches, the standards of grassroots coaching. Well, let's not look at ours. The issues that referees face. We got into a bit of it tonight, but sort of wider issues as well. Has girls' grassroots progressed since the Lionesses won the Euro finals? The cost of grassroots football. We'll look at, can grassroots reclaim football? I think, in terms of, has it got too professional and can grassroots reclaim that? When is the best time of year to play? I mean, looking at the recent flooding that we faced, is there a better time to play? We'll look at starting a women's team to support your player pathway, and we'll look at holding a youth football tournament. That's all hopeful upcoming episodes, as long as this one is successful. On that note, I'd like to thank Mark for joining me.
Thank you.
And I hope you, the listener, have enjoyed this. If you do, like and subscribe to your whichever podcast channel you listen on, and we'll follow this up in the future with more podcasts. You will listen to Andy and Mark on the green grassroots of football, and this is us signing off. So good night for me, and
good night. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. We'll see you again.
Down the wing I look, and there runs Mary, boots of gold and kit so fair. Oh, it's good to play on the green grassroots of home.
You've been listening to a We Haven't Got a Clue What We're Doing production, produced and edited by Andy Glover.